Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, your guide to motorsports sponsorship. Here's your host, Josh Weesey.
Welcome to this episode of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by AMSOIL. Our featured guest today is moto and dooner Nate Mclean. He is the owner of the Papa Smurf Chevy C10 truck. If you've ever been to the Silver Lake Sand Dunes in Michigan, you've probably seen this rig there. Either way, we'll talk a little bit more about Papa Smurf in a little bit, but before we get into the interview, there's a few things I want to cover with you. One is that AMSOIL and I are working together to make sure that you have the information you need to make good decisions about your sponsorship program. We want you to thrive. We want you to be able to grow your racing, your riding, your truck build, whatever your program is, we want you to be able to grow it. Now, you've probably seen AMSOIL all over the place. One, they've been associated with this podcast since May of 2018, and they have been a part of the AMSOIL Championship Snowcross Series. And they make excellent oil too. I run their oil and all my stuff. You know, right now I'm actually getting ready to do my oil change for my snowmobile, 4-stroke, running the 4-stroke oil there. Pretty excited about that. But there's a lot of options out there for your oil. Check it out. I know if you're listening to the show and you're a fan of Nate, you've probably got some sort of truck or rig yourself. I highly encourage you to try running AMSOIL in that. Now, I would love to get your feedback about the show. Head over to iTunes, leave a rating review, and then also, whatever podcast player you use, go ahead and subscribe. That is the best way to make sure that you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes. We actually have a really special guest coming up next, Vipe Desai. Vipe has been a huge part of past marketing and sponsorship efforts for a ton of big names. One, Rob Deerdeck. Another, Ken Block, so I should be able to stop there, but he's also been the marketing director at Monster Energy, and he helped one of the first Red Bull marketing campaigns in the United States kick off. So this guy has been all over the place. You do not want to miss this. He does not let us down. But yeah, Vipe is coming up next, so stay tuned. Now, this episode is also sponsored by SolderWeld. They produce game-changing metal bonding technology. Crash Addict Industries, they provide human protection and extreme racing products. TopToPodium.com, they're experts in motorsports sponsorship. Neverlift Racing, they create comfortable, race-inspired apparel. And then Bold Racing, they're a family race team and GSP, XTV, UTV axle specialist. I also want to shout out some of our other partners, MBRP, HMK USA, Studboy Traction, and of course, GSP, XTV. Without further ado, let's hop in. So, Nate, why don't you fill in the gaps from that horrible intro and tell us about yourself?
I'm Nate Mclean. I probably known, I guess, from the truck that I have, the blue truck, the Papa Smurf C30. I live in Michigan and kind of hang out at Silver Lake Sand Dunes most of the time. Ride dirt bikes and drive my truck around up there, and pretty much what I do in the summer. And the winter is focused on fixing the stuff up to keep doing that in the summer.
Yeah, and that's especially because I've seen your truck, and like if people haven't, you know, you can go check out his site. You know, Instagram, you got a lot of good stuff on there, but that truck there's nothing left of it that's stock. I mean, I don't think even the steering wheel, or you might have a couple, maybe like one of your body panels is stock. I don't know.
Yeah, pretty much just the original body is left over of that truck.
Yeah.
Everything else has been replaced. Yeah, the steering wheel's not original anymore. It's pretty much just the cab, doors, all the sheet metal, the hood, the fenders, and the steel bed sides are all left.
No, that's cool. And so, yeah, it's got to take most of the winter to get that stuff straightened out and make tweaks, and I'm sure your brake stuff too. Get all that stuff lined up again. Yeah, and for people who don't know, the Papa Smurf truck is pretty neat, and like you're saying, the original body panels, you know, they look like they've never been touched before, right? I don't know if you've done one of those what's it called, when people make their furniture look antique but it's really not, or if this is just natural surface rust, you know. But it's cool looking. It's
1968, so it's 50 years old. So yeah, it's all original.
No, that's pretty cool. But then, you know, underneath the frame and stuff, you know, it's all modified to the extreme. So I think that's a pretty neat concept. Kind of reminds you of like a rat rod type deal. like, they're built and they run amazing, but, on the outside they look, like they're original, they've been surviving through the years.
Yeah, for sure. And it definitely, originally all this came out with, I knew I wasn't ever going to be able to afford paint and body work, so I just made sure I picked a truck that I thought looked cool how it was before I ever started.
Yeah.
So
That's a good idea. I'll tell the story real quick of how we met. So we met at the Silver Lake Sand Dunes, which, I don't go nearly as much as you do, but I go a couple times a year, maybe more this year, because I've got a new Jeep that I just bought. Well, it's new to me Jeep, and it'll do, I think, pretty well at the dunes. So I'll be dune ready. I can just roll right in there. Last year, when I met you,
I remember that.
Yeah, my Razor. I was trying to get my Razor in, and there was just too many people. I couldn't get it in. I run into that from time to time. I end up taking my truck in, which is great on the dunes, but it just,
it's not the same.
It's not the same. So, yeah, it's just not the same. But either way, we met there, and we were there for a long travel weekend, which is once a year event. And Jake Coleman was there from the Dirty Dooner podcast, which you've been on before. So we all kind of hung out a little bit, and Blake Wilkie was there, met him. But that was a pretty cool event overall. So that's how we met, and then, we've just kind of stayed connected since then.
Yep. Yeah, and that was an event. My truck wasn't there that weekend.
That's right.
But just kind of went just because of what the event was, just to go and hang out, and ended up getting my truck fixed a couple weekends later. But yeah, it was cool to be able to get to meet you that weekend and just be able to see kind of what it's turned into.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that was a great, quick intro in the qualifier. But I want to dive deeper into your background. I want to know your story. I want to know how you got into motorsports and how you've kind of progressed through the years to get to where you're at today.
Yeah, so started pretty much back, I can think of, about 5 years old. I was the middle child. I have an older brother and a younger sister. And about 5, we had a dirt bike. It was an 87 Honda ZR Trail 50.
Oh, yeah.
Metal, red, white, and blue Hondas. So we had one of those, and we had a go-kart. And I remember I spent a lot of my time in the go-kart just because I don't think I was really big enough to ride the dirt bike as much, and my brother would ride that quite a bit. And then I think the next year after that, when I was 6, finally I was getting on the bike and big enough, and my brother ended up getting a new bike. So as soon as that happened, that was mine. And that's kind of where it started. We just kind of rode around the house, and we always had like a track. My dad was into horses, so we always had a lot of property, horse pastures and that type of stuff. So we were always ripping around just all over the property pretty much. And then locally there was this arena cross series that would run just in not arena cross, fair series that run in like the local fairs.
Yep.
So we started doing that, and it started out with just the local. We lived like 10 minutes away from the local fairground, so they came like 2 or 3 times in the summer to there, and we would race those ones, just the local ones. And then it kind of every year grew from there. So the 50 ended up only lasting me, once we started racing, not very long. I started jumping the thing too much, and I bent the forks on it.
Yeah.
So had to get rid of that, and they ended up getting me a new dirt bike, and it was still a trail bike. And I remember getting, it was a brand new dirt bike, Trail 70. And I remember being pretty pumped on getting a new dirt bike, but it still wasn't a 60. I wanted a KX 60 so bad, because that's what all the kids were jumping, big jumps on the 60s. And nonetheless, I got that Trail 70, and about 3 months later, they had to sell it because I bent the forks on that one too. Jumping it too big, and so they finally decided I needed to get on a motocross bike. So we got a 60. I think at that time my brother got like an 80, and then it was, getting a little bit more into it, and just kind of went from there. And then that 60 didn't last very long. Got on an 80 myself, and I think at 8 I started racing 80s. and raced 80s from 8 to 11. Pretty much just kind of, it was one of those things that just kept progressing every year, a little bit more and more every year. We throw on more races, and the only thing that kind of always held us back was we only raced on Saturdays, because Sundays we had to be at church no matter what. So a lot of the races were Saturday or Sunday races, so generally we never could really run any championships because we never could make it to the races to get enough points. But for the most part, it was just having fun and going to the races on Saturday. So pretty much did that my whole childhood. About the time I was getting ready we were going to start taking it a little more serious. Let's see, I was 11 years old. My parents were going to adopt a child from China, so we were going to get a new sibling. And during that whole process, part of getting a physical evaluation, my dad went into a physical evaluation and failed a hearing test. So they ended up going in further, and he had to go and get a MRI done. And from that, they ended up finding a tumor the size of a grapefruit in his brain.
Man.
So when that all happened, it kind of, we went from, we were getting ready to sell dirt bikes and going to get new bikes and trying to move up to the next class and kind of all that. So I just remember being that age and having a pretty serious talk about how we were going to take a break from things for a while and, just change things up. So that's what we did, and did that for the next couple of years and dealt with all that stuff. And after about 4 years, actually it was 4 years, I was 14, lost that battle, and my dad passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
So, and then from that, it wasn't the best time, obviously. We had moved around a lot as a family, not necessarily as a bad thing, but my parents always moved and were always involved in like real estate and buying a property and building houses, and we were always moving around. So during the process, we ended up kind of further away from family. So we ended up, after that happened, moved back to the area I live in now currently, which is close to Fremont, which is about 40 minutes from Silver Lake. So that's where I was born, and actually I'm back and live in the area now currently. So we moved back to that area when I was the sophomore, going be a sophomore in high school. And up until that point, I had gone to Christian private academies my whole life. So my biggest class up until that point had 6 kids in it, I think. So my freshman year of high school at a Christian private school had 6 kids in my class.
Wow, that's wild.
And left that and went into a public school that I think my sophomore year, I think had 220 kids in just my class.
Yeah, wow. What
so
an adjustment.
That was a big reality shot. And when we got there, started just getting used to all that. At that time I was 16. Pretty much had it made up in my mind I needed to get a job so I could get a dirt bike again. At that point in my life, the only thing that really mattered was getting a job and being able to buy a truck and a dirt bike. But during that time was also like, when I turned 16 finally and was actually like, oh yeah, I can get a job at, anywhere, fast food or a store or something. That was like 2007, 2008. So times weren't the greatest for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, that was a really bad time.
Yeah, a lot of those jobs kind of got taken up by people, struggling to make ends meet, and places like that weren't really hiring 16-year-old kids anymore. So I just remember, just pretty much that's all I dreamt about every day was how am I going to be able to get a job and get some money together to buy a dirt bike. So that went on for pretty much all through high school, and then up until after high school and into college, wasn't able to get a bike. And then finally, I was going to school after college. I moved out when I was 18, and had a house I was renting, and I was going to school full time, working 2 jobs, pretty much just doing everything I could to be on my own. And it wasn't until I was going to school for a while, and it was one of those things where I was going to college and had no clue what I was doing. I was paying for it all out of pocket, so that's why I was working 2 jobs.
Mm-hmm.
I refused to take financial aid out when I didn't know what I was going to school for.
Yeah.
So I kept telling myself, if I can pay for it, I'll keep going. But if I have to take a loan, you can't go unless you know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that for a while, and I ended up, it was the last semester that I knew I could pay for, and I knew after that I had to take financial aid. There's no way I could do it otherwise. And I remember it was like 2 or 3 weeks left of the semester, and I was contemplating on it, and one of my professors came, I did night classes, came storming in, and all frustrated and just was not having a good day. And I remember going up and talking to her, and just to see how she was doing and talking to her. And I'm talking to her, and we got talking about how she was stressed with finances and stressed with all this stuff. And she was back at school, and it just kind of clicked for me that this teacher, which was in the field that I was at that time going to school for, wasn't making enough money in the field that I was potentially thinking about taking a loan to go to school for.
Mm.
And it just kind of clicked in my brain. I said, this isn't the place for me. So I dropped out at that point, and the money that I had saved up for the next semester of money, I went and bought a dirt bike. So I was 19, and I had made the decision, that college wasn't for me, and the book money I had saved up was $1,200 for the next semester. And I hopped on Craigslist, and I found it would have been like a 2002 Yamaha 250F
mm-hmm.
for $1,200, and I went and bought that thing like the next day. And I didn't really have much of a plan. I just knew I wasn't going to college anymore, and now I had a dirt bike, so I had to figure out how it's gonna.
The rest is just details. You had the important stuff taken care of.
Yeah, it really was. I was just like, you know what? I'm a laborer, and I'm gonna just find a job that I can work, and I have a dirt bike now, and we're gonna figure things out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much what happened. I ended up kind of shortly after got my job in the field that I do now. I'm a machinist now, but 19, I was lucky to be able to get my foot in the door in a shop and got going and started kind of funding it a little more. So I had a bike, and at that time, so I hadn't been on a dirt bike in a couple of years and didn't really have too many friends in that scene anymore. And so I was pretty nervous about what to do with things. So I ended up starting to ride up at Silver Lake quite a bit, just because I was familiar with the area and I had been up in my truck and up with friends and stuff like that. So I started going to Silver Lake on my dirt bike just because that's what I was comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
So probably about the first 2 to 3 years, I did that. That's what I did for 2-3 summers, was just work and getting my feet wet in the industry that I was getting going. So I was working quite a bit, doing a lot of overtime and all that stuff. But then when I wasn't at work, it was going riding up at Silver Lake nonstop. It was always up there, always trying to jump my dirt bike, and bounced around a couple 250s, and then pretty soon 250s weren't enough. I ended up getting up on some 450s and did that for a while, riding bikes there. And then after probably 3-4 summers of strictly riding Silver Lake only, I mean, that's all I did. Every Saturday I was there. I finally maybe had some confidence I wanted to start hitting up some local tracks again. So got back into motocross and doing some of that stuff. And, I had some more friends that I had made from Silver Lake riding and, just kind of met and talked to that would go and ride at the track, and started getting back into racing. And that was ultimately, ever since back when I was 11, and, we got out of it, that was my main focus, was getting back on a dirt bike. So I was able to get back on that and had a lot of fun racing bikes. I was racing bikes just kind of for no reason, no really real series, just racing races that were fun. And there was about 2 years where I was probably about, I would say 23 or 24, and I started thinking a little more about, trying to actually maybe do something or have a goal, I guess, for racing. I wanted to make Loretta Lynn National Championship. And my only goal was, I didn't care if I got 43rd when I got there. I just wanted to go there and get a place. So I set out to start doing that. And the problem with all that was I was funding it all mainly, myself. And it was a hard balance of working enough overtime to, because that's ultimately what paid for a lot of my stuff was the amount of overtime I could get in. So it'd go from, I'd work a 12 to 14-hour shift to I'd have all my gear loaded up, leave straight from work, go ride someplace in the morning, go home, wash all your stuff, put it away, go sleep for a few hours, and then wake up and kind of go do it all again. And did that for a little while and was slowly starting to progress and get better. And I ended up qualifying out of an area qualifier. For Loretta Championships, you got to qualify out of an area qualifier and then go to another qualifier to be able to get a ticket to go down. So I was only ever able to qualify out of a area qualifier, never out of the regional qualifier. But nonetheless, I still had a lot of fun doing it. And with the amount of riding I was doing, a lot of more of the injuries started stacking up. And the injuries kind of always held me back. The injuries, I had one injury. I was at the Big Air motocross. I got landed on and knocked unconscious for a good couple minutes. That was a rough one because I ended up not taking any time off work, and I had vertigo pretty good from that. I dislocated my shoulder in that one. So I remember being at work, and the work I was doing at the time was big machining, so a lot of heavy equipment and heavy stuff. And my shoulder's all black and blue, and I'm up on the table trying to do work, and I can't barely move this stuff because my arms are so sore because I was 2 days before it got pile drived. And that was pretty much the cycle for about 2 years of trying to make that goal happen and, nonstop trying to balance that. And kind of when all that happened, when the trucks had always been kind of like the backup hobby, but when it came to summertime, it was dirt bikes, and, dirt bikes always came first for me. And then I always had like a backup project or some sort of truck that I was maybe working on for Silver Lake. And kind of like a winter project. When it was winter, I'd always work on trucks. And then summertime, it was like if the truck didn't drive, I didn't touch it until winter again. So about that time of all those injuries, it started kind of getting in my head a little more of, I'm not going to probably be able to do this forever. And I'm the type of person that I gotta have something outside of work and outside of, just life that I can focus my time and energy on. And, also, I guess gives me enough of a thrill. So at the time, me spending so much time up at Silver Lake, started seeing more of these like pre-runner trucks showing up. There wasn't too many of them back in the day, but, I never really finished many of my truck projects because I would be building a truck that maybe, I had a mud truck that I never finished, and then I was building a lowered truck that I never finished, and it always seemed like it never really caught me. I was kind of just doing it because that's what my friends around me did. And as soon as I saw some pre-runner guys up there and what they were doing, they were launching their trucks, jumping, I was jumping jumps on my dirt bike that these dudes were coming behind me on their trucks and hitting. And as soon as I saw that, I said, I'm going to have one of those. That's what I'm doing. And, kind of set it out from there. So I ended up getting the truck that I have now. Well, before that one, I had a Blazer, a 72 Blazer that I was running up there that was built a little not quite right for what I wanted. So I got the truck. I picked up the truck I have now, and then slowly just started same thing, like in the winters, working on that and kind of building it. I really didn't have any clue what I was doing, cause I had never built anything like that before. So and I knew I couldn't pay somebody to build one. So I pretty much spent my time getting on some forums and starting to read around and figuring out how I was going to be able to build one of these things. And
so I want to hop in real quick and tell people, if they don't know about Silver Lake sand dunes already, we've talked about it in the show a couple times, but there's a lot of people out west that listen, and they're used to like Glamis this isn't Glamis, but it's this unique thing in Midwest Michigan, where you just stumble across these beautiful sand dunes, and they're set up very nicely for, like you're saying, jumps. If you have a pre-runner truck or certain buggies that are built right, or dirt bike, there's nice spots in there where you can consistently do jumps, and it turns into kind of a spectator sport. So yeah, I just want to give people a little bit of context as to what that looks like.
Yeah.
And I've not been to Glamis or anything else like that, but one thing about Silver Lake is it's a lot smaller, which means you'll see the same vehicles, weekend after weekend, or even in one day. Like, everybody will park on the top of the main hill and watch everybody else. So it really is a thing. Even if you don't have a vehicle that you want to, beat up or abuse, you can just take your I've seen a couple like Subarus out there, you just kind of tool around and watch all these amazing vehicles do their thing. So I think it's a pretty unique space, and it's especially unique in Michigan.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's 450 acres that is open to ORV. So yeah, the people that are Glamis or other big dunes, it's like you said, I go up there on a weekend in my truck now, and I don't even know. I probably put 50 to 100 laps in, depending on the weekend.
Right. Yeah.
And that's everybody up there.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's a unique thing. I mean, I've been going there for. Well, I started going when I was about 7 years old. My dad used to go for, years and years and years. He started going in the 70s when there was like no rules. I mean, you just do your thing,
That's what I don't know. That kind of scares me. The thought how busy it is nowadays, and the rules. The directional hills. Thank goodness we have the directional hills and all that. If we didn't have that, that'd be a mess going in there.
Oh yeah, that's how it used to be. I mean, it was, people got hurt or killed pretty much every weekend, every other weekend. It was a pretty Wild West type program, but that's pretty well locked down now.
All rules aren't necessarily bad.
Right. Sorry, well, I hopped in there just because I was thinking, man, I didn't really give a good context of what Silver Lake sand dunes really are.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I'm seeing that thing is Silver Lake's the only dunes I've been to. So in my world of duning, that is what dunes are. Silver Lake sand dunes.
Right. Yeah, same here.
So
that's good stuff.
So yeah, they pretty much, like I said, I was still focused on riding my bike and building that truck in my spare time. So I had that truck for about a year, kind of being built off and on, and some parts going on it. And I was up at Silver Lake for kind of a big event weekend, and I had my bike, and there was this jump that I was eyeing all day that I wanted to do. It was kind of like the step-up double on, it would be known as Exit Hill.
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking at it, and I took some test runs at it throughout the day, and I finally decided I wanted to hit it. So I went and got a spotter and got a couple people to come, stand on the takeoff and stand on the landing, and got a couple people doing all that stuff, and did a couple more test runs at it, and ended up that I got the video on my Instagram, but needless to say, I come up 5 foot short and pile drive my bike into the back side of the dune, and ended up, I think concussion and dislocated my dislocated my elbow, dislocated my wrist, and then fractured my right ankle. So I got loaded in in the ambulance, took to the hospital on that one.
And you went to Shelby? Was it the Shelby Hospital?
No, I went straight to Muskegon.
Oh, okay. My wife broke her pelvis on one of the hills, on Sunset Hill, in 2008 or 2009, so we went to Shelby Hospital right after that.
Yeah, they took me. My elbow was out of place the whole way. So with an elbow, they're not able to put it back into socket until you get an X-ray, because there's you have veins and tendons, or not tendons, but anyways, or nerves.
You got medical stuff in there that you don't want to mess up.
Yeah, medical stuff. Usually I'm unconscious when they're telling me this, so I don't know what they're talking about. No, you have a nerve, and they have to take an X-ray of this nerve to see what side it is on. So when they pop your elbow back in, it doesn't sever that nerve.
Yeah.
So they ended up, I remember being in it, kind of joking with the EMT, and going, he's like, we're going, because I really didn't want to take an ambulance. Me being the person I am, instantly they're going, you got to call an ambulance. Instantly I said, no, don't call an ambulance. I'm not paying for that. I'll go. And it wasn't until I actually, I walked off the dunes myself. I walked into a truck. So my ankle was shattered.
Oh.
And the pain from my elbow was so bad, I didn't even know. So I was walking on my ankle, and I hopped myself into a buddy's truck, and he drove me out and waited in the little waiting area they have. EMS came and all that. And I asked if we were going to Shelby Hospital, and they kind of at that point, EMT explained what was going on and why we couldn't go there and why it was a little more serious than that. So, but ended up leaving the hospital and came home, and I had to see an or a specialist on Monday morning for follow-up. And I remember like Saturday, my ankle, or it happened Saturday, Sunday, my ankle it blew up, was super swollen and hurting super bad, and still was walking on it. And I walked into the orthopedic on Monday morning, and first thing the doctor said is, when do you want to schedule your ankle surgery? That was the first news that I had even done nothing. So ended up getting my ankle fused from that. So I've got a bunch of screws in there, and it's all fused solid now. And pretty much that time I spent on the couch, I was on my couch for 3 months, not walking, and spent a lot of time thinking about, if I was going to ride and what I was doing. I had the truck that was in the garage, and this all happened, it happened in July, and then by the time I could walk was September. The end of September. Actually, the first day I walked was my wedding day. So
no kidding.
I did that. Yeah, I was engaged that summer to be married, and I shattered my ankle and spent the whole summer on the couch and doing rehab, all to try to be able to make sure I could walk on my wedding day.
Mm-hmm.
So, thinking of all that, I knew I probably was going to be done riding after that. So that winter, I had it made up in my mind I was going to get that truck finished. Because come springtime, like I said, it's summertime. I've got to be doing something and outside. And so I still didn't know how I was going to pay for the thing to be able to finish and get the parts that I needed to do it. So I came back from that injury and went back to work. And at the time, luckily, I was at a job that I was able to work pretty much unlimited overtime. So I started working about 80 hours a week. And I did that for pretty much well up to a year after my ankle injury. And I pretty much doubled my salary that year, and then built my truck that I have now today.
Right.
So, and that was, for me, that was the only way that I could figure out how I was going to make it happen. So for pretty much the next 6 to 8 months, that's really all I focused on, was working and saving money. And I would come home and spend time in the garage and working on that. I was able to get the thing built it would have been 2017, I think. About July of 2017 is when I first started driving it. And yeah, pretty much everything I ever imagined. Pretty much, it's a dirt bike, but with a roll cage.
Right,
so
right.
You can do. And then it took off where I was still coming from, a lot of injuries. Even to this day, I still haven't ran. I'm not allowed to run because of my fused ankle and the limitations I have. So it was a big adjustment and lifestyle change for me, getting used to slowing down so much on the bike stuff. But I mean, and I did it on purpose, and I knew in my brain, that's why I pushed so hard to get the truck done, was if I had this thing, I knew me stepping away from dirt bikes was going to be okay. And so that's pretty much what I did. I pretty much stayed off the bikes for about a year, and when I finished that truck, it was my wife and I, or some friend, was up at the dunes every single weekend with it. I was up there sometimes Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that first summer that I got it done. And then even pretty much to this day, that's really what I've been doing for about the last year and a half, is just running the truck and testing it out and changing stuff and just trying to make it, I guess, better and faster and go bigger.
That's awesome. Well, what we're going to do right here is take a quick break. We're going to thank the sponsors for this podcast, and then we're going to come back, and then I got a ton of things that I want to talk to you about. So let's use this minute, though, to take the break for the sponsors.
What's up, everyone? This is Mike Pasquarella, founder of Desert Vets Racing. When the team goes racing, we always have our SolderWeld products with us. Keeping the cars in the fight is our number one concern. With SolderWeld, we can do that. SolderWeld is a leading company in the U.S. for aluminum repair. They specialize in radiator repair on the fly. If you're stuck in the middle of the trail or a race with a hole in your radiator, oil pan, or canister, or even an aluminum line, you can fix it right then and there in a matter of minutes with their AMSOIL aluminum repair rods and flux. It's the only complete and lasting fix in the off-road community. SolderWeld's new UTV off-road kits fit in every ride and are easy to access on the fly.
SolderWeld continues to make a huge positive impact on this industry. So I really encourage you, get in there now. Go to solderweld.us, check out their products, because this stuff is changing the game. 2 questions I get continuously about this show and about sponsorship is, do I need my own website and do I need a resume? The answer is, in my opinion, yes to both, and that's why we partner with TopThePodium.com. Now, if you want to see an example of what a professional website and what a professional resume looks like, you got to check out TopThePodium.com. They did my website. The Sponsored Rider Club podcast website is sponsoredriderclubpodcast.com. That was created by Jeff Vanistal of TopThePodium.com. I think it's awesome. I get a lot of good feedback about it. And there's a number of other websites out there that Jeff has produced that are just phenomenal. So I think it's important in this world of social media where you have control of your content. That's what a website does. It gives you full control. We don't know what Facebook's going to do sometimes. We don't know what Instagram's going to do. We don't know what Twitter's going to do. So if we don't have that central location to direct people and house our content, there is some risk that we incur. So I strongly recommend getting a website, talking to TopThePodium.com. And then the resume, again, is massive. And if you want to stand out, get it done professionally. And honestly, it is one of the best ways to step up your game and present yourself in the best way possible. Family race team. Those are the first words that come to mind when I think of Bold Racing. And the next one is actually axles. Bold Racing is a premier distributor of GSP XTV axles. And if that wasn't cool enough, they just came out with an entirely new axle called the Revolution axle. It is a hollow tube axle. It's really cool. If you head over to their website, gspxtv.com, or you can find out more at boldracingltd.com, you can find out how this new axle technology works. So they are saying to view this as a fuse for your drivetrain. So the hollow tube CV axle twist technology actually increases the strength and reliability of the axle, and it also reduces stress on the drivetrain. Plus, honestly, it's super cool looking, and if people know me, they know that I really like cool looking stuff. So they come in this really cool gold color. Check it out. It's absolutely revolutionary. Look, I'm sorry, but I gotta admit something. I like to look cool. I like to wear high quality clothing. I like it to be comfortable, and I also like it to portray the values that I also hold true to myself. That's why I like Neverlift Racing. So they were founded in 2013, and they are all about high quality, comfort, and looking cool. So, like I said before, exactly what I'm looking for out of clothing. Admittedly, my favorite shirt of all time is the Neverlift Racing silver badge t-shirt. Like, I wear this thing probably too often because way too many pictures of me on social media are wearing this shirt. Either way, they have a ton more out there. So go get your shirt, your hoodie, your hat, and actually your socks. Probably one of the most comfortable pair of socks I've ever owned too. And they got pretty cool things where it says never on one side, lift on the other. Really cool stuff. Get your apparel. Wear something that supports your values. Live fast, drive hard, Neverlift Racing. Safety is our overriding priority. I hear it all the time, but I have to ask myself, is it though? Is that the first thing we think of? Is that the first thing you think of? Over the past couple of years, we've seen the performance of production UTVs increase, somewhere around 350%. That means these machines give us a lot more opportunity to have fun and win races, but it also, unfortunately, gives us new opportunities to crash. And that's why we have partnered with Crash Addict Industries. The owner, Travis Pointer, became very accustomed to crashing early in his career. He saw it as inevitable, and he set out to make the process safer. With a passion for racing, welding, and engineering, Crash Addict Industries now produces full cage and other protection systems intentionally designed to protect you during an accident on the track. They also offer a line of human protection products through their vendors. Do this for me at this point. If you're racing with a stock cage right now, please go check out CrashAddict.com and at least just see what they have to offer. Even if you choose to go with a different company, please make safety your overriding priority. All right, well, welcome back, everybody. We're now in Heat 2. That's where we get into the nitty-gritty details, the part about sponsorship tactics and strategies. So I promised before the break that I had a lot to talk to you about for this, and one of them is just that your story is one that a lot of people, I think, can relate to. I mean, that's honestly the challenges that so many people face. They're like, I have a goal. I want to do something. In our case, it's get into motorsports, build a career in motorsports. Yep. But I don't know how to fund it. I don't know where to find the money at. And, you look at these programs out there. I mean, everything scales, right? But let's just say you're starting on a 50cc dirt bike. To get the money for that, in a lot of cases, that's, can be impossible, right? Or at least feel impossible.
Yeah.
Then you get all the gear and stuff like that. So that's a lot. And then maybe you figure some things out and you make that happen. Well, then your goals keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And if you're racing, you keep getting into bigger programs and bigger bikes or bigger trucks or whatever it is. And then you find out, you're like, I don't know how to do this myself. I've run out of time in the day to do all of this myself. So I think that is the story. That's what a lot of people feel like. And that's why, that's part of the reason why the show exists. But specifically, if people have been listening to the show now for a little while, they've probably noticed a slight shift over the past, 2 months in the type of guests that I'm bringing on, because I think a lot of racers know that they need to do something with sponsors. Like, they have to do something. But the people that don't know as much about that or don't think about it are the Dooners, the Jeepers, the Instagram stars, the people who are weekend warriors. There's there's starting to be more and more opportunity for that. So I'm just going to give a shout out here to your social media. So specifically your Instagram. So it's Mr. Clean 719, I believe. Is that right? Yeah.
Yep, that's right.
Mr.Clean 719. And your Instagram, you have 5,162 followers. I just pulled it up. I didn't just memorize that.
Oh, geez.
But here, this is something that we talk about like on social media standpoint. So you are like one of the definitions here of a weekend warrior, right? Just like I am.
Yeah.
You get out there, you hammer on the weekend, you work during the week. And but I just want to show something that adds a lot of value. If you look at people's social media engagement, like if you look at my social media engagement for the podcast, it's a couple percentage of my followers actually will engage with a post.
Mm-hmm.
In your case, it's 10 to 20% for almost every single post, sometimes more than that.
Yeah.
And that means that your content is appealing a lot to the audience. So you might be getting just as much engagement as some people who have 30 to 50,000 followers. But it's all about how targeted you are and how well your engagement speaks to the people looking at it. So I look at things like that. Let's say if I'm a sponsor, I'm looking at that and saying, got some potential here. Like if I want to sell pre-runner parts to people who ride in the sand dunes, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to be talking to you or your friends or people like you. And I want people listening to this show to think about that, because I'm sure some people are going to listen to this are going to be people who have seen your truck before and they're like, yeah, well, how does he do that? Or how can I do that? Well, you got to think about some of the stuff here. So either way, that's just a little bit more insight initially to kind of kick off this section. But I would love to know, I know you got a couple people that you work with now, but who are your current partners or your sponsors?
Currently, Dune Therapy is my current, probably one and only sponsor that I currently have.
That was the one that I knew we were going to talk about today. So.
Yep. Yeah, currently, just because I haven't actively been doing much with my dirt biking right now, and it's pretty much kind of, I guess, in a shift from dirt biking to the truck world stuff. Dune Therapy is someone that I first actually heard their story on a podcast, and just listening through the podcast to the story of the company and how the company came to be, I really liked that. So I hit them up on hit their Instagram up, started following it, and ended up placing an order and ordering some shirts. And, and that was pretty much it, and cool, and about my business. And it was a couple months after that I got a message from Nate at Dune Therapy, and just pretty much, it was like, hey, thanks, you've ordered some stuff and like what you're doing and like what you're about, and would you be interested in coming on board and helping represent my brand? And I pretty much told him, I said, well, I've already bought in your stuff, so it kind of just lets you know where I'm at. So,
yeah. That's good stuff.
But yeah, I thought that was kind of a big eye opener to me, that, you bring up like the Instagram followers, until that happened, it never really was in my mind of like, you can do anything with this. It really was just the real reason I started an Instagram. If you go to my first post, I was at the Red Bud National and I got a picture with Stank Dog.
Okay. Yes.
And he didn't have any Facebook at the time, so I wanted to be able to tag him. So I started an Instagram that day so I could post that picture. And that was the only reason I got it. And then after that, so now I have this picture sharing thing. And at the time, the forum, so I come from like the forum world, and when I first got into like building my truck and building things, it was all forum stuff. And the forum I was using a lot really died down. They like redesigned the website and it wasn't working and all that. So I just started this Instagram, and I was pretty much coming from that world of, posting pictures, posting some stuff you talk about, getting feedback from these guys. And it really just kind of transitioned into this Instagram, because I had the account and I didn't really have anything to post on it, because I didn't really much care about it. But then I kind of figured, well, I'll just post all of my truck stuff and it'll be all in one spot. Yeah. And then it's just kind of developed from there. And then, I got that message from Nate, and it was kind of like, oh, well, that's pretty cool. And it's actually turned into, he's going to be he's just releasing right now. It's turned into moto gear. So
oh, nice.
When he first hit me up, it was just clothing, and he's got a new line of goggles coming out and 4 new sets of moto gear coming out. And, that's going to transition over. And I'm actually heading out to Glamis in 2 weeks, and we're headed out to go meet up with Nate and doing therapy, and he's going to kind of show me and my wife the ropes out there.
Oh, so I knew you were going on an adventure here. I wasn't sure exactly where. So you're about to get a whole new experience pretty soon here.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
So actually, yeah, this is back when I first decided to build this truck, it was always my dream to go ride my dirt bike out, just like any Michigan dude. You ask anyone in Michigan, where do they want to go? They want to go to Glamis.
Right.
So, just like anybody, I wanted to go out there and ride my dirt bike, and I was never able to make it happen back then. And when I built this truck, I told myself, once this truck's, drivable and I've proven it enough to myself that I'm going to Glamis and I'm going to bring a dirt bike in a truck. So, I'm at that point right now. So, it's something that I never even, when I first thought that was like one of those goals that I set for myself that was like, that was at my top list of I thought was impossible things to reach. And looking back on that, I made that goal probably, I think 4 or 5 years ago. So it took me some time to make it happen, but nonetheless, you stick with it, it happens.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
So,
now, in the past, when you did moto, I'm sure your parents did a little bit of this stuff too at the time, but what kind of sponsorships did you have back then?
So when I was young, it was just all funded just strictly by my parents, just by my dad, really.
Yeah.
The racing thing was all my dad. He actually worked in the same industry I did, tool and die. So pretty much same thing. Anytime it was race time or anything like that, he could always bump the overtime up, new gear time.
Right.
He was always doing stuff like that. Oh, you guys, we need new parts. He's going to work, a couple extra hours this week. And so that was when I was young. When I got older, a couple of times I got help. It was at one point in time I was racing 2-strokes, and a buddy of mine, we were racing the same bike, some YZ250s, and he ended up knowing this guy at a small engine repair shop that we ran some graphics for him. It was J&M Motorsports. We ran them on our shrouds, and the guy would give us OEM or parts at his cost, OEM parts, and then he would also do labor for free on our engines. So that was a 2-year kind of thing where, that helped me out a ton. I got a fresh engine every year, at cost parts, and I didn't have to do any labor. So that was huge. And then in return, all we did was run some shrouds, and anytime, obviously tried to send some work his way for engine repair stuff. And I had that for a little while. And then there was a website, mxsponsor.com, that it was one of those where you sign up, and I want to say it was like $50 for a yearly membership. And I ended up getting I did that when I started doing my goal for Loretta Lynch. At that time, I really ramped up my riding. I was riding like 3 to 4 days a week, going through parts and going through stuff, at a more of a rate. So that worked out where MX Sponsor, you kind of signed up and made an account. And I think through that website at one point in time, I had over 20 sponsorship deals, and there were nothing. You never really dealt with the companies directly. It was like they kind of worked as a middleman. You made your profile, and they would kind of present offers to you based on what you inputted as far as information and race results and all that. But nonetheless, for the best that I ever got, which still helped me a ton, was like some 50% off deals. I had like 50% off year deal, 50% off some bars. And when you're using that stuff, you get in one crash and you rip a jersey or you tweak your bars, bars at $80 to $100 a set. Getting them 50% off really helps. So that's the biggest stuff that I was doing. Pretty much anything I was getting was through there. sponsor. Locally, I was getting some stuff through my local power sports, David Allen Racing. Every once in a while, they were helping me out here and there. They were always, when I bought a bike, they would buy my bikes back at the end of the year, that type of stuff.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
So nothing, and I mean, I was trying to make it. I don't want anyone getting the misconception out there. I'm not no open A, Loretta Lynn rider. I was trying to make C class.
Yeah. Yeah, I got you. I got you.
In the world of national championship, I mean, C class, the kids nowadays the year I went and I was trying to make times, I think I said I qualified to go to a regional. And the reason I didn't even go to the regional, because I just knew I wasn't going to make it. The kids that were winning the class that I was racing, if they would have raced an open A sport that day, they would have placed 4th and 5th.
Yeah. Wow.
So the classing was it was one of those things where, yeah, it wasn't in my favor.
Right. Well, I actually want to talk a little bit more about dune therapy because you made a comment earlier. You were like, I wasn't even thinking about that. And there's so many people out there, like including myself. Take me back 2 years ago. I wasn't even thinking about this kind of stuff. Like, is it even possible? Even with this show, because I have, I've had people in companies that I've worked with that have supplied me with product or, gear discounts and that sort of stuff too. Until someone even proposed that to me, I hadn't even thought about it. I was even already doing the show and I hadn't even thought about it. But until you get that first little thing, you're like, it opens up your eyes to so many possibilities. You're like, why would I buy anything normal ever again? Like, why wouldn't I pursue something like this for every opportunity? Now that's not the case, because if you were to do that, you would just get so overloaded with trying to keep up with sponsor obligations that you would probably end up failing, your sponsors, and you're not delivering what you should. But goodness, the opportunity is just so vast, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think about that time as really, that was just last summer, so it would have been summer of 2018 that happened, and it kind of, I guess, when I met you, started listening to your show more at that time, I guess I've really just recently got into listening to podcasts and, anything obviously trying to get any off-road information that can, found a few podcasts and, that kind of happened, and listening to your podcast, start getting things clicking, and, ultimately my goal with the truck eventually has always been to race it. So it's gotten my mind in a different way of thinking from here on out of, how I want to do things.
Yeah. And that's actually part of what I wanted to get into today. When we talk about your strategy going forward and, what's next for you in your motorsports career. I was hoping to pull some of those details out, and I wanted to ask you, this is a little tweak from how I was going to ask it, but knowing that you want to get into racing and knowing what you've learned this summer and actually probably over the past 2 years with social media, what do you think is the next steps for you? How are you going to position yourself, for a stronger sponsorship program or I guess for the potential to race your truck in the future?
Yeah, so I don't know if it's necessarily the right way, but
hey, join the club. Nobody knows if it's the right way or not.
Yeah. For me, I'm a pretty headstrong person. All you have to do is ask my wife. So that you know, I'm pretty not necessarily set in my ways, but I definitely value my opinion the most out of anyone's opinion. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
And so I like to hear opinion and take insight, but when it comes down to it, I believe in my opinion. But going forward, I think I really want, I think aligning myself with the right people is something really important. I see, when the Dune Therapy thing came about, it's something that, it made my mind think, and I really thought about it. It was like, well, what does this mean? And, essentially you're representing a company, you know, and for me, it's really important. I represent companies that I actually believe in and I want to actually be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that doing therapy was. So it was an easy choice. And then it kind of just, maybe that was a blessing looking forward of, you know, any other opportunities that may come my way to really evaluate, is this, you know, are you doing it for the right reasons? What are the reasons you're doing it for? Because you know, you get an offer for something that, if it's not anything that you actually use or is, you know, I guess something you believe in, I kind of tend to feel it's probably maybe going to do more harm than good.
Yeah. That's a really good point, what you just said there. If it isn't something you use, and actually you also said if it's not something you believe in. We've talked about the believe in part in the show a few times, but like, if it's not something you use, are you really... does it really make sense, or is it gonna cause more harm than good? So that's a really good point, because you could, let's say if it is a vehicle, I can't think of an example right now, but if someone says, hey, I've got this, you know, custom part that, you know, put it on your vehicle, it'd be amazing. You're like, well, basically with my setup, I don't know if I really even need that, but yeah, sure, I'll support you. And then you put it on, and it causes some other havoc with your setup, and then you have to do repairs, and you're like, oh, this isn't going to work. And, I mean, that can happen. Actually not can happen. I bet it happens more often than we know or than we hear.
Well, the reason I say that is because I think I do see it happen. I think the idea of, you know, like you're talking, it's kind of a new idea of like you're saying, the Instagram world of marketing and people that are maybe getting into it, and maybe there's the excitement of getting wow, this is a cool opportunity, and just jumping on that because you're excited about it. And like you said, it's, oh, yep, I got this part, you put it on, and then you actually get to using it, and maybe you've already blasted it all over, and this thing's awesome, and made all these videos and blah, 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 and then you go use the thing, and you end up hating it, and it's bothersome, and now you've got all this stuff out there that it just, like I said, I think it has potential to create more problems than it could good.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something for me that's important, looking forward. And then other than that, I think I just want to have, I guess I look at it, if I'm going to ask for something, I want to have a good resume to give back to show why they should.
Mm-hmm.
So I think part of that for me, with this trip I'm actually going on is kind of what that is for me. I'm going out west. Ultimately, my goal is to race my truck out west. Well, I've never driven my truck outside of, West Michigan. So if I want to go race in the desert, I need to put my truck in the desert and figure out what I need to do to do that, I think, on my own. And, once I get maybe a little bit more defined of where I'm going to go, and have a better understanding of what I'm doing and something I can present, kind of where I'm at, maybe looking forward and looking for some other companies to, team up with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, for people listening too, if you're hearing this and saying like, oh, well, I hadn't really thought about this kind of stuff before, you know, I've only been a dooner and I just do it for fun on the weekends. There's like, you don't have to do this, right? But if you're trying to think of how can you push yourself a little bit further, or, you know, if I only had this different set of tires or this different set of suspension, you know, I could really do some pretty amazing things. If you're at that point, you just don't know how to fund it or how to move forward, you know, this is another option. It is another way of looking at your, I'm going to call it a business, right? Your business of motorsports, how you look at that and how you can make more things happen than you thought possible. I mean, for me, honestly, you know, my last Razor build that I did, and even my snowmobile, like, I couldn't have made it what I wanted to with just my own funds. You know, I needed support from other companies, and, you know, and I didn't, at the time, I wasn't even dreaming that was possible, and things just started happening. And looking back, I was like, man, that was so cool. Like, and then you're so much more grateful. But you gotta balance that thing out, and you gotta make sure, like to your point, it seems like going forward, your focus is to make sure you're picking the right people and you're doing it for the right reasons. Because if you pick the wrong people or do it for the wrong reasons, you can get a little overloaded, or you can get the things you don't want, or it might not actually be better in the long run.
And I think that's what's important for me. I guess it ultimately depends on what are your goals. And for me, this is something, I'm looking long term. The first part of I don't know, I'm from West Michigan, and I'm looking to start racing a series that's every single race is more than 2,000 miles away from my house. So,
right.
So, I mean, just figuring out the logistics of just that alone have been a little daunting. And I will say this, I used to think I was pretty stressed out putting my dirt bike racing program together. And, just because I got a cage around me now, it takes probably 3 or 4 times the budget to do this stuff than the dirt bike stuff.
Definitely. Yeah, and these things just keep going up and up and up. And it's like, people I talked to a lot of people in these show that started off on dirt bikes or ATVs, and they've progressed into large UTVs, or, even trophy trucks. I've had a few trophy truck drivers on. You're talking millions of dollars now to have a successful race program. And it's just the way it is to be competitive. Some people end up having more money in their differentials than in their entire, someone else's entire race program. But it takes time to build to that. And many times you can't do it on your own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's really been, I guess, the biggest thing for me is of doing the amount of stuff I do on my truck. I really rely on myself. I do my own shock tuning, and I do my own engine building. And, when it really comes down to it, I prep the truck every time I go out, and, ripping the thing apart myself. I got to go through the shocks, go through the rear end, go through the motor, go through the trans. So when it comes down to, for me, even the option, you get a team that says, well, pull the rear end out, send that to a guy, pull the shocks out, send that to a guy. That's not even in, what I think is my world yet.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's future. I'd love to be able to rip my shocks off and send them to somebody, but there's no way I can pay the bill to get them back. So.
Yeah. Well, what kind of shocks are you running on that?
So there's I have 4 coilovers one in each corner. They're 2.5 Fox coilovers that are internal bypass.
Yep.
And then I also have 2 3-point Fox coilover or bypass to the rear.
Okay.
So I'm still wanting 2 more shocks up front, but it's just one of those things. They haven't had the money in the budget for those yet.
Well, folks at Fox Racing, hey, if you're for Fox Shocks, if you're listening, you might have someone you need to talk to here.
Yeah, I've been working with what I got and making do, and it's good. But ultimately, before a race happens, I'd want to get some more bypasses on the front, just to be able to control it a little better.
Oh, sounds good. Well, hey, I know that you are a third shift worker here, so it's for people listening. It's Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, roughly, when we're recording this on November 18th. So I know you got to get to work here pretty soon. How are you on time?
I'm good on time. It's whatever you got.
All right, perfect. Well, we'll just go through maybe 1 or 2 more questions and then kind of close things out. What I wanted to talk a little bit more about was your social media. Instagram has been one of your strengths, and I already mentioned earlier that you've got a strong engagement percentage. And you'd also mentioned that you created it with the intent, well, 1, to share the picture of Stank Dog, right? Which I went and looked at while you were saying it. Did you purposely try to look like him in that photo? We're doppelgangers. I actually, that year at the National, I signed 4 autographs to Stank Dog. Really?
Yeah, I did. I was doing Which, if you look at that picture, I'm like 8 inches taller than him.
Yeah, I'll say you're much taller.
That whole weekend, I was trying to hunt him down, and he actually the only reason I got that picture is so that year I was racing at the National, and I was racing on Sunday, and their like motorhome broke down, so they were watching all the amateurs race on Sunday. And I just happened to be in the stands watching a race, and I look over, and he's right there, so I got the picture. But
awesome.
Yeah, nonetheless, I was doing photo ops and autographs that day.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. So you created the profile for that, but essentially you were like, this is a place where I can capture all of my truck photos, and I like in one spot. But tell us about how that strategy has evolved over the years, because it looked like from that it had been about 2 years or so. So how's your strategy evolved? How do you think you have gotten to the point where you're getting such good engagement on your posts?
Man, I don't know if I really have ever had a strategy.
No, that's fine.
When I first started, when I first started it, I was still building the truck, so it transitioned from, like I said, the forum. So the real reason I wasn't posting any of like my build pictures, I guess, on there, because the forum was still active. And then as soon as they went to redo the website, they took you weren't able to upload photos straight from your phone. And for me, that was like it. I was like, you had to use a third-party server, and I was like, no, that's too much. I want something instant now. I can just upload it, be done. So it transitioned to that, and I started posting these build pictures on there. And that's I started getting a little bit of a following, I guess, locally of like the Silver Lake community that kind of knew me, and following me building that truck. And once I got it done, it kind of went from there, and there's never really been, I guess, like a big burst of like numbers. It's just kind of been a slow, steady over the last 2 years. I guess as the truck has progressed. And for me, it was probably after about a year, once I drove the truck and was actually driving, I started hanging out with more of the people. When I was building the truck, like I said, there was like the pre-runner guys that were at Silver Lake, and I really didn't know them. I just saw their trucks and saw that I wanted one. So once I had one and started going up there, you tend to gravitate towards the same like-minded people. So started hanging around more of the guys that had trucks, and one of the guys that has a truck started a company known as Dialed, which that's Luke Walker's company. It's which he pretty much same thing as a guy like me that has a truck, goes to the dunes, and he started wanting to film and putting more, I guess, content out there of what we were doing up there. And so he did a video on me. He called it like a Dialed, like get to know your drivers of Silver Lake kind of thing. Okay. Because like you said, Silver Lake is such a small area, and there's so many people that come up there to just watch, or they just sit on a hill and they watch a lot of guys run around. That was a pretty cool opportunity, and it kind of really, it was like a Instagram 1 minute long feature where he had me talking in the beginning, and then had some really cool shots of the truck. And, I was super pumped on that video. And after that, it kind of sparked me to go, man, doing some more stuff than just putting, a picture here and there of, I'm on the dunes, click. I kind of been doing that for the last couple of months, and I guess getting bored with it. And it's in my mind, I was like, if I'm bored enough and I'm not excited about the picture, I'm not going to put it up. So I guess my philosophy has always been, if I'm like super excited on something or amped, I'm going to put it up there and share it. It's like, this is something I think is cool and I want to share, and I want other people to see it.
Yeah, well,
and
it sounds simple, but that makes sense.
Yeah. So that video kind of got my head going on that, and I've always been pretty interested in being into action sports, and kind of growing up in the era that I did of, X Games and Nitro Circus, and, seeing the content that gets put out by that level of rider and athlete, it's something that maybe for me, a weekend warrior, you always dream about, having a video or a feature of that level or caliber. It's like going, well, I don't have a production crew that follows me around all day.
Mm-hmm.
But with technology that's come out nowadays, you can make some pretty cool stuff just hanging out with your buddies on the weekend. So after that video, I started doing some more filming and trying to put some stuff together, and mainly just, and continuing to share it and show the progression through that. I got some videos that I put up there that I go back and look at, and I mean, I don't think in any essence they're good. They look like a 16-year-old kid in high school working on a video project, but but nonetheless, it was just me trying to do stuff, and I still like to try to edit some videos and put some stuff out there, and that's kind of what it's grown is, and even to this day, the Instagram stuff for me, I don't really have a rhyme or reason that I follow on anything I post. It's kind of just, anymore it seems, I'm so busy with getting all my stuff ready to go out west right now. I'll kind of be on Instagram looking at some other people's stuff and kind of, oh man, I haven't posted anything on my page in a couple days. And I'll look and it's like been 5 days since I posted something. And I'll find a cool picture. The nice thing about Silver Lake is you get a lot of good opportunities for photo ops because of the small area we have.
Right.
So I got quite a few pictures stashed away and save them for a rainy day.
See, that's a strategy. You got a strategy, you just didn't know you had a strategy.
I guess I didn't know it.
You got pictures saved up, you know what content you're going to be producing, you do it on a frequent basis, and you realize if you fall off that frequency that you got to pick it back up again. You partner with other media people to make sure you got, fresh content. Oh man, that's a strategy if I've ever heard one before.
Oh, dude, okay. Well, I'll say this then. So this trip out west, I don't really know what I guess I'm going to call it. I've been calling it my Dune tour, because the plan is actually to not just hit Glamis. I want to hit Dumont and Pismo as well.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So with that, I'm looking to maybe step outside of my comfort zone a little bit and thinking about starting a YouTube channel and doing some documenting on the trip and, getting to that next level of putting myself out there and what I'm doing in another avenue.
That sounds like a horrible idea. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. No, I think it's great. I love people, trying new ways of getting their content out there. Something that's been popular lately is vlogging. So it's vlogging. So it's video blogging essentially. But you just document your experience, and even if it's little snippets, it could be pretty cool. I mean, I used to do my own little video edits just for random things, usually trail riding, or I used to have RC cars and I'd strap a GoPro to those things and make little edits, and they were fun. But like the people who I think really have a knack for the storytelling portion of making videos, those are the people who get the good content out there. So, and you can do that with little snippets nowadays, and like people still get the gist of what you're trying to tell.
That's what's pretty crazy about the world of kind of the vlogging. And like I said, growing up in my younger years of like motor, the only videos that I ever saw was like back when we used to go to the power sports shop to get parts. They would always have TVs with like Crusty Demons playing on them, those types of videos. And for me, growing up in my Christian Academy days, the only time I got to see Crusty Demons when we were at the parts store getting parts.
Yeah, yep.
So where now you look at, and like the quality of film, now you look at, there's just people out there, on Instagram doing live feeds or YouTubes and just putting content out there that maybe isn't production polished quality, but they're captivating and they have content that draws people in.
Yeah. Yes, I fully encourage you to give it a shot. I mean, honestly, I think the only thing holding back live videos from, serving the purpose that you're talking about is just connection and service and, the strength of the network. Even me, I do all my live shows from my basement, from one consistent location, and, I get the signal's poor sometimes. Some of the videos get choppy. There's technical issues, but Silver Lake Sand Dunes, for example, the service out there is horrible. So if you want to do a live video from Silver Lake, there's 4 spots that you might be able to get enough service to actually get a video out there.
That's very true. Which I don't, that's the thing. I live close enough that I do a lot of day trips.
Right.
We camp up there quite a bit as well, but for the most part, on a Saturday, we load up in the morning, go up there, and as soon as you get there, and I might take a cool picture or want to share something, and I'll sit there, maybe I'll give it 5 minutes, and if it's after 5 minutes, I'm done, and the rest of the day is about, playing.
Yep.
Do it later when you get home.
Yeah. No, I completely understand that. Especially a lot of places where I ride, whether it's trail or whatnot, I have to post things later, or I'll try to put something up on an Instagram story or something, and it'll fail or not upload, and because I don't get service, I might not even get service the entire weekend when I'm trying to do something. So you got to save that content up. I was so grateful when Instagram switched their rules to where you could post pictures up on your story later. At first, I think it was just like Snapchat or, where you could only post things in the moment. And I can't use it half the time. And I have 2 phones, so I have 2 different services, and there's these places are still not consistent enough in service to be able to get your content out there real time.
I don't know. That's crazy to me that with all the, technology is beyond, there's technology beyond my mind, but we still don't have good service everywhere.
Right. Honestly, where I live at, I don't know if most people know this, and this is why I struggle so much with, my live videos and actually one of the main reasons why when I do the podcast, I never do video versions of it. The one that we're recording right now, you and I could potentially be pulled up on a video and looking at each other, but I have DSL, where I live at, which is in Michigan, Southwest Michigan. We don't have cable out here, and there's just
I'm same boat.
The internet I have is, whatever, 12 megabytes per second, or it's horrible. I can't, if my wife tries to go on the internet while I'm doing my live show, we're done.
It shuts down.
It's just everything shuts down. My kids sometimes they want to try to watch, there's these YouTube channels out there. Listen, speaking of YouTube channels, there's YouTube channels out there where kids will just play with toys, and they get millions and millions of followers, but they try to watch one of those shows and it crashes. If you can get one show in, we're high-fiving each other, but it's pretty crazy but that's the world that we live in. We got to work around that content strategy. Well, hey, man, I feel like we could do this forever, but it's getting late. You got to go to work. I got to get to bed here at some point because I got to work tomorrow. But hey, we'll just kind of wrap things up here at the finish line. I kind of skipped over the main event, but we covered a little bit of that. We talked about your future direction and things like that. But if you kind of had to leave the audience with one thing that they needed to take away from this conversation, what would that be?
I think maybe the best thing that wraps up everything is, I think I'm a pretty firm believer in everyone gets dealt a hand, and it's kind of up to you to take it, and of your own responsibility of how you're going to play that hand. You can play that hand poorly and have poor outcomes, or you can play your hand and make the right connections at the right time, and things can go forward. And that's kind of, I guess what I kind of live by is just trying to make the best out of any situation I have, and, you know, always progressing forward, like, through that. You know, stagnant, I don't know, being stagnant is not something that I really like to do. My mind is constantly racing, thinking about things, thinking where to go and what to do next. So I'm always looking to be able to play my hand, and maybe I need some more patience, but that's kind of where I'm at. It's ultimately every decision you make is, you know, going to affect you in a positive or negative way, and try to make more positive effects.
Wow, that sounds good, man. Well, what's the best way for people listening to connect with you?
Probably just through my Instagram is probably the best way. That's kind of really the only thing I'm most active on now.
Yep.
Which I think you've already said it, which is Mr.Clean719. And then, like I said, coming up here, I'm leaving for 2 weeks on this trip. I am going to probably make a YouTube channel, which I'll post all that obviously on my Instagram, and I give that a shot and see how that goes.
Oh, sounds great. I'm excited to see how it turns out. Well, I really appreciate you coming on tonight. You know, it was great actually getting to meet you in person. I rarely get to meet my guests either before or after or during a show, so it's great to like have that connection ahead of time. But you know what? We got to kind of close things out, so I'm going to leave you with this. Have fun and ride safe. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast. And if you are listening to this one and it's close to the date of release, it's been almost 2 years of this podcast existence. So I'm pretty excited about that. This is episode 123. So we've been cranking out some episodes over the past 2 years. Hard to believe it has been this long already. But I want to make sure that you subscribe. That way you don't miss any of our upcoming guests. We're not going anywhere. We got a lot more to come. We got a lot more to deliver. Vipe Desai is up next. I told you a little bit about him in the intro, but he's worked with Rob Dyrdek. He's worked with Ken Block, the Martelli brothers, Monster Energy, Red Bull, and he's the CEO of his own company. Like, it's crazy. So you're not going to want to miss this one. Follow us on social media, especially our Facebook page. That's where we do our live episodes. So we're going to have Jared Heshka coming up in December. Excited for that one. And to get insider access and any of our upcoming guests, go ahead and check out the Sponsored Rider Club on Facebook. That's where you can come on there. You can ask questions about sponsorship, and there's a community there to help you. A special thanks goes out to our sponsors, AMSOIL, Neverlift Racing, SolderWeld, Bold Racing, TopThePodium.com, and Crash Addict Industries. I also want to shout out our other partners, GSP XTV, MBRP, HMK USA, and Studboy Traction. I look forward to serving you again next week. Until then, have fun and ride safe.